Debate 2 was about cloud security and was opened by Iben Rodriguez of NSS Labs, who asked how data center security should be implemented. Hongwen Zhang of Wedge Networks said that security had to be centralized. Dennis Moreau of VMware said that the problem was the complexity of today's deployments.
We've got to drive the complexity out. What I'm seeing as the principal problem then is the architecture for being able to deploy protections, keep them aligned through movement, and be able to give me enough context to have an actionable result from all those logs that are going to be telling me about what's going wrong and where. If I don't have that context, I won't be able to move. So we see that as the fundamental problem, but also the fundamental opportunity for moving from a place where we're bound by complexity to a place where we can actually use the dynamics to our advantage.
Paul Toe of Spirent Communications said the security needed to be layered.
So I think there are actually huge opportunities where at each of those layers, right, if you look at, from control point of view, right, each of those layers can become a very much a coordinated, policy enforcement engine, right? Every single layer to parallel the layer defense that might be needed for a given situation, right? And then also not just enforcement, but also from an analytics and intelligence point of view, right? I think it will be huge value if each of those layers can provide the intelligence necessary to do threat assessment, intrusion detection, all those kind of things.
So from my point of view, I think we've consolidated risk over the last several years. We've gone from tens of thousands of physical servers managed by many administrators in different buildings, in rooms, with locks on the doors, to single blocks of storage and compute with thousands of virtual machines managed by a single or a few set of administrators. So we've now gone to the point where we've got administrators with uncontrolled amounts of power. I mean, if you think about the Snowden effect, we're siphoning files off at the top level in the stack. If he was running at the a virtual administrator layer, he can just steal the virtual machines without any of the administrators.
The discussion then moved on to the value of encryption in the cloud.
Yeah, absolutely. I think about encryption. So typically people will only deploy it in the data center if there's a need. There's a regulation, HIPAA, PCI, FISMA.
Right.
Their thinking changes when the data leaves the building. So, think about notebooks. That's the place where encryption's deployed on physical disks.
Whole disk encryption.
Whole disk encryption. So, if somebody finds a notebook, boots it up, they're not able to get access to the data. And I also find that thinking changes when you go to the public cloud as well. As soon as my data leaves the building and goes to the public cloud, I want to be in control. I've now got a different set of administrators manage my data, replicating it, backing it up. I don't know where that data is. Some of them may offer encryption, but if they hold the encryption key, then it's as good as putting your jewels in a safe deposit box and giving both keys to the bank.
So you can do A4 in terms of getting just-in-time decryption for your compute instances in the cloud where the customer holds the keys.
The customers hold the keys.
Yeah, and in your big data instance in particular, you can look at Zhang, who's very, very good at being able to enable crypto shredding so that you don't have to worry about that footprint of your data that went out on that Hadoop store that has all this direct attached cache. Well, it's encrypted there as well. Throw away the key, and guess what? All of those cached instances don't no longer worry about them. So at least the orchestrated versions of implementing this stuff are there. It takes management overhead. It's not near.
I didn't say it was easy to use, but we'll get there.
Yes, definitely. I think that data encryption is actually a balancing act. And let's face it, a lot of cloud services, at the service, they have to share data. That's really the contradictory part of this whole thing. And there are certain industry academic research areas that we are very, very interested in, for example, that allow you to indexing data but not necessarily have complete visibility to data. That can have a very large impact to how the things can be organized.
And if I may inject some controversy, right? There are a lot of international folks here, and I want to say, in the new era of Snowden and NSA, what is the trust level, right, in terms of encryption? And again, I think that's, if I flip it around though, I think there's an opportunity for the industry, like, because to kind of add other layer of security and defense on top of encryption, because encryption, I think, is not going to be the only answer, but like things like being able to, have a policy engine where I can specifically specify where I don't want to locate my storage and VMs. Right? Maybe I want to avoid a certain geopolitical region.
The discussion then moved on to geolocation and how to understand where and how cloudy data is stored.
See that happening a lot.
For this kind of policy-based enforcement of where I want to locate my VM and data, and also where I want my data communication path to traverse.
Yeah.
Right?
We're also launching products in June of this year built around Intel's geofencing, so we can prevent your VMs from spinning up if they're not running in the right location. Now, if you think about data sovereignty, where my data is moving, regardless of what Amazon or other providers tell you where the data is stored, when we get to the point where we can spin up a VM, get access to the data that might be encrypted, and refuse to deliver an encryption key because that data is not residing in the location you want it to, that's where we need to get to.
So why isn't everyone using this technology?
One of the reasons it's not pervasive is it's not cheap.
Okay.
Someone's got to take ownership of those TPMs, assign the escrow keys, do the management, and the implications on utilization are significant. If I'm confining things to geolocation, I'm no longer optimizing purely for server utilization of underutilized capacity. So the places where this really sings are in the specialized and the hybrid providers who've differentiated on providing exactly this kind of capability and visibility.
So
Look at Terramark, right?
Okay.
I think that's really the issue with security. It's funny, there are very good security algorithms. The trouble is try to apply them into the places where you can apply. And if, for example, securing data center sounds very scary, like security is a major thing. But if you look at it, if you have to truly secure a countrywide network with these hundreds of millions of devices, that's even a major nightmare to do that. So I think really if you look at it, distribution mechanism is very, very important to distribute a security solution in it. This horizontal layer is really the key.
The final point was about a need to unite the various teams responsible for data center technology.
Right, and we're all busy, VMware doing the compute stuff, and then you have, storage, and then all the overlay guys doing their own stuff, and then you have the underlay. And that's why, we're part of this forum called the Cloud Ethernet Forum, right? And the mandate is really, looking at bringing all these layers, people together and constructing this, what I call vertically integrated use cases. Okay. And I think security, should be a leading one to drive this talk between, all these different operating domains and vendor domains.